Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I am your ever-loving host, Shorty. And today, I'm reviewing something which, I have to kind of put all my cards on the table for this one. This was on my pull list the moment I knew it existed. It is by two creators that I absolutely love. And even without really knowing much about it, I knew I was going to read it. So you kind of have to take everything I say with a hint of bias in here. Not least because the writer is Garth Ennis, one of my all-time favorites. And although I've had discussions before about like not necessarily on here, but with people about like the greatest Superman stories ever told, Grant Morrison, Tom King, Alan Moore, all done absolutely brilliant jobs of it. One of my absolute favorites is still a single issue that Garth Ennis did of his Gotham-based character Hitman. This guy can write superheroes really, really well. Even though he doesn't usually do it that often, or if he does, it's like kind of in a twisted and unusual take on it. But he's also written Batman in the same comic book in Hitman. Whenever Batman turned up, Ennis took the character seriously, or at least as seriously as Batman took himself, which meant there was lots of grim foreboding and the like. But he always took a little thrill in the fact that the other people in Batman's world didn't necessarily take him that seriously, or at least if he wasn't actively beating the hell out of them, they realized like the ludicrous nature of him. One of the early appearances, Tommy Monaghan, the Hitman, who could see things as X-ray vision, knows that Batman is coming, points a gun towards his face, says to inform the troops, Lord Vader has arrived, just as he steps around the corner. He has a lot of fun with it. Throw into that Liam Sharp's artwork, which is just beyond beautiful. And it's probably going to be artwork we talk about quite a bit, so I'll get to that later on. For now, I'm going to talk about what's actually going on in the comic book. Not necessarily the full story, but what it's about. And that is the idea that there's somebody else going after Gotham's criminals and doing a far more brutal job than Batman ever would. And that's saying something. And Batman trying to figure out what's going on because he has no idea, which is nice. World's greatest detective getting taken by surprise, always fun. And it has a lot of extra little twists and turns going. The opening sequence is absolutely brilliant. It's nothing really to do with the main story. It's kind of like it's a setup of intent, which I really quite like. Because it takes Batman away from just the raw physicality of the character and has him approaching somebody, a heavyweight titled boxer who's basically just been found not guilty of rape and assault. Batman's evidence wasn't enough, so Batman turns up and just points out that the guy's a coward. And goes into quite a lot of like insulting stuff about him just to make him realize that even though he got away with it, he's still a bad person. And that's a nice take on what Batman can do. Like, he uses his imposing stature to actually accomplish something rather than just resorting to violence. And it's that kind of thing which is nice to see from Ennis, because usually his superhero stuff is like really over the top, hyper violent kind of stuff. I mean, The Boys, prime example. So taking a slightly more subtle look at Batman, somebody who is kind of famous for brutalizing criminals, and turning it not completely on its head. There is still violence, but it's kind of like the threat of violence. It seems to be a more effective tool in his arsenal, including at one point repeatedly reminding a criminal that Batman does not kill people. You will never die because of Batman. He will keep you alive. And it's very nice and intimidating. But then we have to talk about the art. We just do, because it's frankly beautiful. We're talking page 1, 4th panel here, and I fell in love. Because that is just Gotham in the rain. It's just people at a press conference. Look at the lighting effects. Look at the highlighting. Absolutely stupendous. And it carries on that way throughout. Batman actually meeting the gentleman in question I was talking about earlier with that excellent red afterglow there. Absolutely beautiful. And the style of it actually is kind of weird. It's Liam Sharp, it's through and through. But there's also like a really ethereal Dave McKean kind of feel to it, and an otherworldly Sam Keith thrown in there as well, which is nice when you consider that it is a Batman comic book. Batman, again, for all the things everyone knows about him, he is just a guy with money. No superpowers, he's not an alien, he can't turn invisible or anything like that. So having that like OTT stylized kind of look to it is absolutely brilliant. There's also something which after yesterday's review, I feel like I need to mention, because when I talk about art, it's very, very subjective. One like artist I absolutely adore, or some people may hate, and vice versa. So quite often when I talk about art, I talk about the technical nature on it. Of it, I'm sure people are probably fed up of how much I've really gone about 3-point perspective and how amazing it can look when done correctly. But I've got 4 panels here, and they look at like first glance just to be a repeating style, but it's not. There is detail in there which changes. Sometimes it's as subtle as a grim lower lip being pulled back a little bit, or an eyebrow raised quizzically. It's the same thing done, but with that little difference which makes it stand out as being different and unusual, and is used to tell the story, which unfortunately yesterday's review didn't do. Yesterday's artist didn't do. So even if you don't find this art style beautiful, and you really should, it's amazing, at least you could appreciate it on a purely technical level of being superb. Very glad it's on my pull list, and I hope a bunch of you go and grab your copy of it, because it's absolutely amazing. That's it from me for this week. I will be back next Tuesday for a new comic book day. There's a slight possibility I might do something on Saturday, but I don't want to get anyone's hope up because I've just stuff going on. So until then, look after each other. Stay safe. Bye.